Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Bring Back the Love Conversations. I'm your host, AJ Throwback, and we are continuing in our series about love languages. This is actually the final episode in the series, and I am super excited, as I always am, but like really excited for tonight's episode as I welcome a sister of mine who is, just a renaissance woman. So many different things, an entrepreneur, a fashion icon, let me tell it. You know what I'm saying? Even and see, we don't talk about this enough. You don't talk about this enough, even with some acting credits. You know what I'm saying? Like just got a lot under your belt, an awesome mother. Just whatever you can think of, this woman can do. None other than my sister, Javi Osei. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. What an intro. Thank you so much, my
I
brother.
I got, if I had a drum roll, I would drum roll it, but you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to knock my camera over trying to, hit you with the real good drum roll and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. We go
Absolutely.
way back.
Yes, and I cannot forget. Yes, we go back. This is the second week in a row that I am having a fellow alum from Hobart and William Smith colleges. You know what I'm saying? Y'all might think it might be a little bit of cronyism going on, and you might be right.
Yes, yes, definitely.
But my peoples from college, we are, not only are we awesome people just all the way around, but we are very well versed when it comes to music, when it comes to style, a lot of different things, and drawing the intersectionality between all of these things. So y'all know how we do. This is a conversation about love, romance, and R&B, and we definitely gonna have a good one tonight with my sis.
For sure.
Absolutely. So, as I always like to start off with folks who come on the show for the first time, um, I think everybody kind of sort of has different experiences when it comes to their exposure to R&B, when it comes to their exposure to music, period. So, what were some of your first memories of like growing up, listening to R&B, listening to music, period? Like, what was some of the songs, the artists, the people you just really made you fall in love with the music?
So I think my father definitely had his like record collection, and I remember like he had it all stacked up in the living room. So I remember going through it and seeing like, the Whitney Houston album with, when she kind of had the bald look, or the
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder album. Um I think it was Rocket Love. So I remember like listening to those like old school jams when I was young. Like I'm saying, I don't know, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, let's say like sixth grade, I think Jodeci was popular. The Forever My Lady album,
Mhm.
um, Mary J. Blige, Real Love, all of that. That's what really Guy.
Yeah.
Let's Chill. I remember being that girl who would put the radio on and then like hit the cassette tape to record, like that whole I'm sure everybody's done that at that age. So that was probably like the time when I really fell in love with R&B, and just like feeling that like that connection between, oh, I got this crush at school, and
Yeah.
I love this song that kind of be like, just kind of makes me feel like, ooh, he could be my boyfriend, or like whatever at that age about what that means.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And what's interesting is that you mentioned Whitney Houston. That I think it's what is it? I think it's eponymous. I think that's the term when an album is self-titled. So
Right.
yeah, that was that first album that had "You Give Good Love,"
Yes.
"The Greatest Love of All."
Hmm.
I think "How Will I Know" was on that album.
Hmm.
It was "Saving All My Love for You." I mean, just hit after hit after hit on that
Yes.
album. But yes, the cover and what's funny that you mentioned, like she had the bald look,
Yes.
and what I realized over time, because it was so crazy seeing that album cover, but then you seen, if you're anything like me, you saw the videos first. And so
Mhm.
like you saw all this big hair in the videos, and it's like, wow, she has like, she just got a lot of hair. And then you see the album cover, and it's like, wait, where all the hair go?
Right? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
realizing years later as I got older, it wasn't that her hair was cut short or anything like that. It was pulled back so much.
Oh, see,
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I was today
yeah,
years old when I found that out. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, like it took me a long time to realize that's what they did because if you look on the back of the cover,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it's the same texture of hair, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like they have it in a the way they angled it, it was like in a really tight ponytail, where the ponytail was like down so much that you couldn't really see it. But it all
Ah,
it
okay.
really looked like she didn't have no hair, so
Right.
a short
Exactly.
haircut. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's when it was like at that moment I was like, okay, yeah, black women just be doing their hair a little bit different. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's like one minute
Yeah.
they got like all of this hair, and then the next minute it's like just go short. So
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like that, and it's funny because like that's one of those albums. Whenever I think about, we have very similar experiences in that way because my dad's records. My dad was a DJ, so he had records
Mm-hmm.
laying all over the place, and that's the one album
Mm-hmm.
that probably jumped out the most to me in terms of the album cover. And of
Right.
course the music, because I was a big Whitney Houston fan too. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely remember that. And then like when you fast forwarded to, you mentioned the Jodeci, Mary J. Blige,
Mm-hmm.
Guy, like you really talking like that kind of like New Jack, but kind of pushing a little bit forward
Yes.
ahead of New Jack. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Almost like the spinoff of New Jack when you got like Jodeci and Mary J. Blige, because they're that hip hop soul type of vibe that's really kind of sort of like the younger brother, younger sister of New Jack Swing. You
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
definitely. And I remember like Troop. What was
Yes.
that song? Like, all I do is think of you. And then,
Mhm.
of course, later on, you realize, like, okay, they sampled, the Jackson Five and just that connection. But I always loved that story. Like, it was always like a feel good. Like, I remember Anita Baker, who
Mhm.
I love so much. I
Yes.
love all those classics, Sweet Love, Rapture. I mean, just all of that stuff, and I still love it to this day. So I guess that's when I show my age, because my son will be like, oh, only people listening to this are 100. But I'm like, no, I mean, I listen to it, I'm not 100. But yeah, just that vibe is just, I love hip hop and I love pop, I love rap, but I
Mhm.
always have a soft spot in my heart for R&B and just love songs.
Yeah. 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 I'm the same exact way. Like the interesting thing is I've as an artist and as a producer, I've done primarily hip hop, but R&B has always informed the type of music I make because a lot of like my production is very melodic. Like I
Mm,
always kind of sort of wanted to fuse the drums of hip hop that are harder with the melodies of R&B, which are softer, to kind of sort of give it that balance.
right.
But like R&B has always been like, in terms of the genres, my first love. Like that's what
Yeah.
really got me into music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many albums where you can be like, oh my goodness, like, I remember being in at Hobart, actually, I think it was freshman year,
Mhm.
and the Tyrese album, I was going to his
Yes.
first album and I went through, like, I loved almost every single track. So
Mhm.
you kind of like associate a song with like a period in your life. Like obviously Lauren Hill, the Miseducation of Lauren Hill, like
Mhm.
that's a life, right? Like
Yeah.
I can totally relate to these. And um yeah, I think that that's what makes it such a like a love for me, is
Yeah.
that it's so relatable, but then it's also like you have such feel good moments that you associate with the music.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that you said in the midst of everything that you said, awesome so far,
Hmm.
was tapes. Like
Yeah.
we come from the era of tapes, and
Hmm.
it's so funny because I remember it was like these videos years ago where they had these kids trying to figure out how to like use a Walkman. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
and it's like that, they like they're just so lost at what to do. And it's
Right.
like I think the beautiful thing about like us that are in that group, like, because it's like you have Generation X, you have
Mhm.
millennials, but then
Mhm.
you have the in between, the zennials, and we fall into that category
Right.
because we're the ones who are able to navigate the older technology like vinyl, tape,
Mhm.
CDs, but also navigate the newer technology, MP3s, digital media platforms,
Mhm.
like all of that stuff,
Mhm.
because like we're right in the middle of
Yes.
seeing the transition of the technology and being able to appreciate it. I mean, you think about when we were in
Imagine.
college, like when we were in college, like you talking about Napster.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was literally thinking it while you were saying it. I was like, yep, we were there when Napster was out. And I remember that. I remember like downloading everything and then it
Yep.
would take forever. Then you'd have to
Right.
start again. And you're like, no, like so
That was the
frustrating.
worst.
Yes. And then like before that, like when you were trying to tape on the cassettes, you would tape from like the radio, you
Mhm.
would just want the DJ not to talk over the song so you can get
Right.
the complete song from start to
Yep.
finish. And
Yep.
so yeah,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the struggle was real.
Very real, very real. And especially that part about like what you just said, like a part of me kind of likes when I tape stuff and I
Mhm,
have little pieces of like the radio personality or the DJ talking. But then
mhm.
sometimes it's like, all right, you talking over the good part, bro. I'm gonna need you to like
Right. Exactly.
wrap it up.
Exactly. 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 But I always
Yeah.
loved the Quiet Storm, that was
Yes.
always like a just a vibe. And I remember your show was always amazing in college. It kind of like it was just it brought you back. And it was always like you always had the flow, you had a dope Quiet Storm show.
Thank
Um
you.
so yeah, I love that to this day. WBLS we have up here.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's my vibe.
Yeah, yeah, and you actually started to cover exactly where I was going next. That's number one. Number two, thank you
Yes.
for the compliment on the Midnight Storm. Those of y'all who don't know, that was our slow jam show on campus. And here's an extra bonus y'all didn't know, ladies and gentlemen. Javi was actually a short time guest host on the show. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
What? Oh my gosh, what was your radio name? It was
I
like
can't even remember now, right?
cocoa cream or something like that, or caramel cream, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was like it was a CC alliteration. I remember that part. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I'm gonna have to pull up them old tapes and somehow transfer them to
Ah,
MP3
that
and
would be
send you your
so.
episodes.
Oh my God, that would be dope. That would be dope.
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
I forgot to mention that in the intro as well, y'all. Like she's a radio host as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was fun times right there. Very fun times.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
It's cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mean you mentioned WBLS,
Mhm.
you mentioned the Quiet Storm.
Mhm.
Um, and that's part of the conversation as well because it's not just the music but how we got the music.
Right.
You talk about radio, whether it's music videos and music video shows, which seem to be a thing of the past now.
Yeah.
You talk about the way that you listen to it, whether it was on cassette, whether it was on vinyl, whether it was on CD. Like, how do you feel like the way that you received music in all of these different mediums shaped the way that you appreciate music?
Well, I think when I was growing up, I couldn't listen to like my parents were, my father had the music, but then that was his thing. It was a little bit more like pure for, his era. So as
Mhm.
we were getting that, R&B, that Jodeci, a little bit more about love making, my parents weren't really like supporting that, right?
Mm,
Oh, that's not appropriate for you, whatever.
yeah.
So, I think then it became like, okay, I'm trying to hear this song on the radio, trying to catch it on the tape because it's not as accessible to me, right? Like it wasn't like I could just go and ask for them to buy an album for me and listen to it as much as I want in my Walkman. I had to kind of, craft away from myself to get the music that I want to listen
Mhm.
to.
Yeah.
So then obviously that makes you almost, appreciate it more, but also kind of be a little bit more obsessive about it. Like, I don't know, remember like Color Me Bad, what was it? Sex You Up. That
Yeah.
was definitely like, no, my parents weren't like, I wasn't gonna be blasting that in my room. And my
Right.
parents were like that's absolutely not happening. So then you're like, I need this song. Like, how do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, whereas it's obviously you can get anything and everything that you want. It's nothing, and it's not even like a cost at this point.
Right. Right. Yeah. It definitely shapes the way that you get the music because, like, while my mom was a little bit more liberal, in fact, both of my parents were a little bit more liberal with the music that we listened to.
Hmm.
I think mainly because I'm not gonna lie, at that time, like when I was like a teenager, like I was listening to like the grown and sexy music, you know what I'm saying? I was listening to like Will Downing and you know what I'm saying, like smooth jazz and stuff like that. Like granted, I was listening
Okay.
to the music of my era too,
Right.
but because like I was listening to WHUR, which is the home of the original Quiet Storm, they played like the slightly older age bracket of music. Now, granted, they're on Howard University's campus, but they also recognize their their demographic, which was like
Hmm.
basically 30 and up. And so like I was listening to WHUR a lot. And the thing is, a lot of the stuff that they would play on WHUR, they didn't have, if I wanted it for myself, they didn't always have readily available on CD because some stuff was out of print. So
Mm.
I would have to go to an actual record store and find the records
Oh
if I
wow.
wanted if
Okay.
I wanted certain songs because they weren't
Right.
making them on tape, they weren't making them on CD anymore.
Hmm.
Until years later when when they started putting stuff back into print, people started buying up their catalogs and saying, I'm gonna put the music out myself. But like it was a lot harder to find a lot of that music, and this is also before the YouTube era because then there's certain songs that still aren't on CD, still aren't on tape,
Right.
even with them re-releasing things or still not on digital platforms. So you have
Hmm.
to just hope somebody like uploads it to YouTube and you can watch it that way. But before
Right.
that, like when you think about like what you said, like having to get the Color Me Bad or the Jodeci or something like that. In my case, like the out of print stuff, like you really
Hmm.
had to do some hunting to
Right.
really find some stuff where you had to go beyond the radio. You had to get a little bit inventive to like get stuff or somebody dubs you something. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like
It's
that
true.
and that's a term that's not, I think that goes over some people's heads of certain generations. You say, yeah, like dub me a tape real quick. They'd be like, what?
Right, right.
What you
Like, what
mean?
you talking? Yeah, yeah. But it's funny because even with like, discover like some R&B that is not like commercial.
Mhm.
And for example, oh my goodness, this group. I don't want to sing because I can't sing, so I don't want to like have caused you to lose subscribers. But you know
I'm
that
sure you
song.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
No, you know that song with like the seven guys. Is it seven? It's like seven or six guys last night. AZ, I think it's
As yet. As yet.
as yet,
Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
So I discovered they had like an album after that,
Yep.
and it was like a good five, six songs that I loved. And I could not
Hmm.
find this album anywhere, but I can find it online. Like I can find it streaming various places, but it was
Hmm.
so hard. And I remember like locking in, this is over 15 years ago, and just being like, oh my God, where I need to find this. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's out of print and it becomes like a mission because you just need that particular music in your life.
Yeah, yeah, because it's different when you have the actual CD to an
Right.
album. Like I think I actually have that album, that As Yet album.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was about yeah, about a good five or six like really good songs. They also remade a song, I think hard to say I'm sorry. I think it
Mm,
was it Chicago that made that song or the Eagles, one of those groups. But at
right.
any rate, like it was a remake, and that was like their other single that they put out like not long after that.
Right.
But yeah, like last night, I mean that one I think got probably everybody like, okay, where can I find this album? And then
Right.
because
Exactly.
because it didn't really sell as well, because I think the single is what really sold people on it in the first
Right.
place. they were just like, yeah, we're not selling the CD anymore, but it's
Yeah.
just different when you have the CD because like it's a hard copy. You get to actually look at, like, if you're anything like me, you like to read the liner notes. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like to see the actual artwork in front of you. See,
right.
how they printed stuff on the CDs. Like, because
Hmm.
back in the 90s, like a lot of times they could get creative with how they, decorated a lot of those CDs. Same thing with the vinyl, like how they would do those labels, some of those
Right.
labels, like that was one of a kind stuff. Tapes was a
Mm,
little different. Like they didn't really get too creative with tapes, but
right.
like I just felt like just having that hard copy of an album and knowing that you paid for it. That's another
Oh,
thing because
yeah.
it's so easy to get caught up in streaming a song or streaming an album, but then it kind of makes you almost lazy as a consumer because it's like, okay, well, I can listen to the album anytime I want without actually having to buy the whole album.
Right.
Versus
Definitely.
saying, let me commit my money to buying this album because I really like it that much, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when we talk about, I mean, you talked about like artists, you talked
Hmm.
about the ways that you listen to music coming up.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of specific songs for you, like that are some of your favorite songs that you can like that just jump off the page to you when you think about love, or even like certain songs that like when you hear it, like, man, this song really speaks love, like, or
Oh my
speaks my
goodness.
type of love, the kind of love I want. Like, what are some songs that like
Oh.
jump off the page to you?
Oh my goodness. That is going to be a difficult one because I have such a bad memory when it comes to like actual names.
Yeah.
I love Sade, like just the
Mm.
vibe of Sade. Her songs are just they just give me that like a sexy kind of feeling.
Yeah.
um there's a Michael Jackson song that I love, as far as like the love and the feelings that you want to invoke. It's called Heaven Can Wait, because I think that's
Yes.
so crazy, like to like when you think about what he's saying, like I don't want to go to heaven, which, hello, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Like we all want to be in heaven because I'd rather
Right.
be with you.
Yeah.
So it just speaks to like that sacrifice of just being into
Mm,
someone.
mm.
Um Same thing with Joe.
Oh yeah.
All the things your man won't do. I love
Yeah.
that just vibe. Just all of those kind of songs. I'm trying to think. There's so many. It's
Yeah.
hard to just, you know, condense and consolidate to just a few songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those vibes like that. Then I like oh my goodness. There's this Mob Deep song with 112 that
Yeah.
what is it? Anything? No.
I think
Anything you want. Yeah, I think
I
it
I
is
think that
anything.
is it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would fall into R&B because you have the 112, but then you have the rap, so it's like a perfect marriage.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if Passing Me By would qualify as R&B. But Far Side, which I love, that is like one of my
Mhm.
favorite all-time songs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but similar kind of like somebody being so into you. I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I like a lot of songs that are a little bit on the stalkerish side. I don't know what that's about, but I like that. I like a man looking for me in the night with a flashlight type of deal.
Wow.
I'm like,
You-
wait a
the,
minute. All these
the
have a similar theme.
the funny thing is, unfortunately, those are some of the best songs.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not too into, I do like a few old school Tony Braxton as
Mm,
well.
okay.
Um Not so much the heartbreak, obviously,
Yeah.
but there's still some good stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, because her heartbreak songs can be specifically hers.
Mhm.
to a certain degree, even Sade. You mentioned Sade because I remember when we were when
Yes.
we were in junior high school, the running joke was Sade had that slit your wrists music.
Oh, it's true though.
Yeah, I mean her dark stuff, yes, but then she has songs like "Keep Looking,"
Yeah.
or she'll have songs like even "Turn My Back on You." Like you listen to the lyrics to "Turn My Back on You," it's like, yeah, but this groove though. Like, can we
Yeah.
get into this? Like,
Yeah.
forget the
Yeah.
lyrics.
Exactly. I like Paradise
Yeah.
as
Oh,
well.
yes,
That's a
yes,
great one. And
yeah.
that's I think that's like a pure love song.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Agreed. Yeah,
so yeah, there's a
yeah.
few. And then more recently I like there's this artist Nia.
Hmm.
And I like her stuff. I like her voice. It's kind of like a raspy voice. And yeah, it's she has some good stuff. Coco,
Hmm.
I like as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of, and that's what I like about a lot of the new artists. Like if you, especially if you dig, because
Hmm.
one of the things that I don't really like is when people say like, "Oh, there's no good music out anymore." I'm like, no, 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 no. You just got to
Hmm.
look. You just got to
Yeah.
know where to look. You can't always depend on the radio, and I think having the radio conversation in terms of how we got music versus where we are now, it's important because unfortunately you're not getting the same stuff on radio that you get
Right.
from doing deep dives. It's like
Yes.
back in the day, the radio kind of geared you towards the deep dives because
Hmm.
like you wanted to go crate digging or you wanted to like go find that album in the store. But
Right.
now it's like because there is a lack of stuff on the radio, it's like, okay, I got to get inventive. I got to go on the internet like, okay, this type of R&B or like, one of the things my wife always does is she'll just play one artist on like Amazon,
Right.
and like it'll create a whole playlist around
Yeah.
that one artist.
Hmm.
And it's like then you start discovering all of these artists that are related to that one artist. Like, oh man, I would have never even thought to listen to this
Right.
person if I didn't plug in this one person, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was so crazy. It was like one day she had played, I think it was like John Coltrane, and she was like playing it because we were doing cleanup around the house. Like jazz is like great cleanup music, and so is
Yeah.
R&B too. But
Hmm.
like then I found out about like Lee Morgan and like all of these other
Hmm.
jazz musicians that I never heard of in my entire life because you just plug in, and that is the plus to today is
Hmm.
that you can kind of sort of like you can do that, whereas you couldn't do that back in the day. You just had to
Right.
be way more creative, and it forced you to listen to music a little bit differently. Like, okay, what artists would go good in this playlist? The
Right.
whole mixtapes, making your own mixtapes
Right.
and all of
Right.
that. Like,
Right.
you had
For
to
sure.
really put the right artists together in
Hmm.
order to create the playlist. Like, you had to make your playlist. Nobody can
Right.
make
You
it
had
for
to
you.
absolutely
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought about a few more artists that I enjoy. Lena, I liked her first album, but I think her second
Mhm,
and third albums were pretty good as well.
mhm.
Um, her song Playa No More, like it's about a guy who is so into
Yeah,
her. Like he used to be a player and now he's not. I mean, my vibe for sure.
yeah.
Um, Jodeci. It's so funny because obviously classic original Jodeci, who doesn't love? But then
Mhm.
like the last single that they had together, um I think before Devontae announced that he was leaving the group was like classic Jodeci. And I was like, how is that possible? Like, how are they able to create this same vibe 20 years later?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a few more that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mhm.
when you got that vibe, when you got that energy, like sometimes, yeah, it could be 20 years later, and you
Mhm.
still have that magic, so to say.
Yeah.
When you got it, you got it.
Yeah.
And
True.
the thing that I mean, just thinking about somebody like Jodeci, the thing that I appreciate about that time is
Mhm.
all of the greatness that whole just even just them being associated with Devontae, like
Yes.
all of the greatness that we got after that,
Oh,
like we we
classics. Yes.
we we got the Timberlands and Missy and Aaliyah
Mhm.
and Genuine and Playa and like
Mhm.
all and Nicole, Ray, Tweet, like
Right.
all of these different people that like kind of sort of branched off of that Devontae tree.
Mhm.
and like gave us all of these great artists that we love, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even some of the unsung ones that we didn't realize how much we love until we peel back the layers and realize they wrote a lot of the songs we love, you
Right.
know.
For sure.
So
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A Bootsy Collins, I'd rather be with you.
Oh
It's like,
yeah, yeah.
what? It's a sexy song, but like,
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I feel like for me, it's all about the vibe.
Yeah.
It's all about just that you want to feel good. You want to get the rhythm going, but the lyrics are important as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about R&B. It's like the blues is in the lyrics a lot of times, but the rhythm is in how they put the songs together in terms of the
Right.
compositions, like the groove. That's where a lot of your it's a different type of soul because a lot of times people make the difference between R&B and soul like they're not really the same thing, but they relate them a lot of
Hmm.
times, but it's just a different kind of soul. That's all,
Right.
you know.
True.
Because I mean it's I mean when you think about the Jodeci's, oh, they singing with soul.
Right.
they,
Definitely.
they singing their faces off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we kind of transition
Hmm.
and relate all of this to the main topic of love languages, I think a lot of times when people hear love languages, of course, you know, we will think about the five main love languages:
Right.
words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time,
Hmm.
receiving gifts, and physical touch. Like I
Yeah.
always have to the one I always have to remember to say is quality time because sometimes I forget that one. But like
Mm.
as I'm counting in my head as I go down the list, is like, okay, is that five? Okay, all right. but
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
um but it's easy to kind of sort of think about it in those terms. But then I think sometimes people kind of come up with their own love languages that are related to those, but almost
Mm.
give them a new identity or give them a different identity that speaks to them.
Mm.
So whether you're considering the conventional five love languages, or even if you have a name for what your love language is yourself or how you would describe it,
Right.
what would you say your love language is?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna give three.
Okay.
I think my number one is definitely receiving gifts. I love to get some gifts. And then I would say following that is anticipating my needs. Um, and then quality time for sure.
Yeah.
So those are
Yeah.
my three.
Yeah. Yeah. So knowing that, and it could be specific
Mhm.
situations or general situations, whatever. We don't need no names. But
Mhm.
what are some situations that you've experienced in relationships where you feel like you got that the most in terms of
Mm.
whether it's receiving gifts, whether it's anticipating your needs, or whether it's quality time? Like what are some memories or some experiences that just like you feel like they really understood what I needed in that moment?
Okay, let me try starting with something superficial, I guess you could say. So things like, I like my bed made
Mm,
in the morning. And I
yeah,
remember I was dating this guy and brother was talking about he don't make the bed. And I was like, so but if I leave before you, I don't want to come home to a messy bed. Like, come on,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
He's like, I don't know, all the girlfriends I had made the bed for me. And I'm just like, this is so crazy. And I remember coming home one day and the bed was made. I was like, oh my
Mm.
God, you know. And it was super sloppy, but the point was that he did make an effort and he heard me.
Yeah.
And he did it. And I remember just being like, okay, that meant something to me. Um, I remember a guy buying me a lawnmower to cut my grass because these were not things I wanted to do. So I like those like guy things
Yeah.
that men do without you asking, like putting
Mm.
gas in your car. It just
Yeah.
makes it's like a small thing that makes me feel appreciated and loved. And of course, yeah, it's nice to receive like actual, like, hey, let me get you some clothing. But again, I like the thought that goes into it, not just
Yeah.
pulling up with like a lot of cash, which is awesome too.
Right.
But it's really like, hey, this is something that you needed. This is something that you wanted. I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
Um, I've received, like a spa day, which is
Hmm.
something so nice, or going out to eat with a girlfriend and having a boyfriend call in advance to like put it on his tab. And
Mm.
that's a surprise. Like I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to the restaurant not thinking like, you know, I'm prepared to pay, right? And
Right.
then them being like, oh, don't worry, the bill was taken care of. Like, oh, what? That's
Yeah.
so, it's just
Yeah.
thoughtful.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I like that one.
Yeah.
I'm sitting over here taking notes. I'm like,
Like,
okay.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting about what you're saying is that the thing about receiving gifts
Mm-hmm.
is that, and a lot of people might not necessarily always say this when it comes to the whole love languages thing, is that it can easily veer into acts of service. Because like one of the
Right.
things that you said, like the brother who got the lawnmower,
Mm-hmm.
like that was an act of service. The brother who, even though it wasn't the best made bed job in the world, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he listened to you, he knew what you needed, like the whole anticipating a need and then kind of sort of jumping in and doing it. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that very much is an act of service. But like a
Right.
lot of times, how you give the gift can be an act of service because
100%.
like you said, it's the whole thing of like there has to be some intentionality involved. There has to be some thought involved. Like like yeah, anybody would love a wad of cash, but it's like
Mhm.
it's frankly it's kind of lazy, like
Right.
unless
Exactly.
you have to know the person. And when it comes down to this whole love language conversation, is
Mm-hmm.
that that's the key. You have to you have to read the room. You have to know your audience. It can't
Yeah.
be just what you think. Just because like they like to receive gifts, it's like can't be
Mhm.
just what you think that they should get. It's what
Yes.
they need, what they
Yes.
want, what they
Yes.
desire. It's speaking their specific language, like
And
something that resonates with them.
that's so good that you say that, because I experienced that with a boyfriend as well, because my love language is, receiving gifts. I also feel like I like to give gifts, but
Mm-hmm.
not everyone likes to receive gifts. Like their love language can be something else. So
Right.
I remember I gave a boyfriend these uh, flight lessons. Well, it was like an intro lesson to flying a plane,
Yeah.
and he never like um, did it. And I was
Mm,
so like annoyed about that and so upset. But as I continued to get to know him, he enjoyed when I cooked. Like he just loved when I cooked for him. And so for
mhm.
him, his love language was, acts of service, obviously.
Yeah.
But because my love language was receiving gifts, I just automatically assumed, well, hey, I like to receive, I like to give them. You're gonna appreciate this. But he appreciated, you know, the service.
Yeah.
So it's so important that when you are talking about love languages, to be tuned in and not assume like just because your love language is one thing, that
Mhm.
the person that you're dealing with is going to have the same one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's is perfect because that actually covers something I was going to ask in terms of an experience where you may have kind of sort of mixed signals when it
Mhm.
came to speaking somebody else's love language. Because I
Yeah.
remember one of the first brothers that I had on in this particular series on love languages, he was talking about how his love language matured over time to a certain degree, but because he's married and he has a specific love language, even in the ways that like their him and his wife's love languages are similar,
Hmm.
he still had to do it differently because just like physical touch, I think was his top one, but they also had like I want to say acts of service, and it may have either been quality time or no, it was words of affirmation. So they had acts of service and words of affirmation in common. Even when you have the same love languages in common,
Hmm.
like it still has to be tailored to that person, because something
Definitely.
that affirms one person might not affirm another person,
Mhm.
or a certain act of service that is received well by one person might not be received as well by another person. So yeah, it really is a matter of knowing what that person wants and what they need, and giving them what they want and need based on them, not what you want
Right.
to give. Like
Right.
it really is one of those things where you have to check your ego at the door and say, you know
True.
what, it's not about me, it's about what you need, what you want. So
Right.
you feel like you're getting everything that you need from me as your partner, as your boyfriend, as your girlfriend, as your friend, because that's another thing that
Hmm.
I've been talking about in this series, is that a lot of times it's easy for us to get caught up in the romantic side of speaking love languages. But
Right.
one of the things that we've explored a couple of times in a couple of episodes is the importance of family and friends understanding our love languages, and us understanding our friends and our family members' love languages, so that they feel like they're getting everything that they need from us.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Feeling appreciated.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So as I mean, you've experienced life, you've been married and you've been in
Mhm.
relationships before, and you've evolved, you've matured, you've experienced things, and I'm sure that even with knowing what your love languages are, I'm
Mhm.
sure to a certain degree those things have kind of shifted a little bit with those experiences. So as you look ahead
Right.
and think about, being in a relationship moving forward,
Mhm.
what are the things in terms of like, how do you think you would be different, if at all, when it comes to your love languages? Like, do you feel like they've evolved, matured as you've gone through the experiences that you've gone through?
I think I think it's because of my experiences that I've gone through, they are what they are right now. I think in the
Mm,
past, quality time was high on the radar for me, but that
mm,
has kind of dropped down because of my experiences. So I'm
okay.
kind of like, I understand that people are busy. There's only so much I can give of myself at this point in time. And maybe because I have a child, so I'm kind of like juggling that as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not as pressed. I don't need to be, before I felt like somebody had to live like right on top of me. And now because I'm older and, more mature, I have other things going on. I don't need to spend every waking moment with, my significant other.
Mm,
So that definitely has evolved over time, but I always need resources, whatever way they come.
yeah.
So that is definitely like, okay, don't come over here with nothing, sir. Um, but because I have my own thing going on as well. So you'd like to, I think that's also an age thing too, right? When you're, fresh out of college and, early 20s, it's just not a thing. I think it wasn't a thing for me, but
Yeah.
now that I'm older and I'm meeting people also around men around my same age, it's like this is definitely a sign of something, like your
Yeah.
mentality, your mindset. So there's that. um I think the interesting thing though is that I physical touch is probably my least, like, it's so low priority for me,
Mm,
but I, for some reason, attract a lot of men who it's a very high priority for them.
yeah.
So I think that I am evolving to be more of more affectionate. It's
Yeah.
just not, I just was never like a big affectionate person. I'm
Mhm,
most affectionate with my son, but
mhm.
in relationships it's like, okay, like the hugs, don't hug me too long, like a cat, kind of like, okay, this is enough, let go. But now I'm starting to be more like, okay, I could do this. And I don't know. I know there's something there. I have to figure what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, as time has gone on, I've been more like, all right, I could, give a little hug, a little pat on the back.
Yeah.
I don't mind
Yeah.
holding hands, like that type of stuff.
Okay. Okay. What's funny is when you said what you said in terms of like, a cat, like you can
Yeah.
only hold a cat for so long. I
Right.
instantly thought about so one of my former coworkers and friends.
Hmm.
It was the most. I'm not gonna lie, it was weird, but then I realized I'm like, depending on who it is, I hug people this long. So we did this experiment at work where like she was like, when you hug somebody for 20 seconds, it
Hmm.
like really changes the energy of like the room because it's like you kind of sort of get their energy, they get yours. And when we did it, it felt so weird because it's like, dang, 20 seconds is a long time to
Yeah, I
hug
was just thinking
somebody.
that. Yeah. You're like
Like,
that. I'm like, oh, that's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. So it's like, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, you be probably struggling after about three or
Yeah.
four.
It's funny because people have always said that I do like a police pat, like a hug from a distance, and it's like, yeah, because I'm like, why are you trying to be all up on me? But I've gotten better because I understand that sometimes people need that. Like
Yeah,
when you say, it's not just romantic situations, but if
yeah,
friends sometimes are like huggers, and so I've kind of come to like tolerate it because I know they need that like physical intimacy for whatever reason. Like they just want to get that comfort.
yeah,
So that's kind of helped me to just be like, okay, this is not about me. And like when you said about the gifts and the way that people are receiving them, that in itself is like that love language where people, it's more for them than it is for you.
yeah,
So I understand that now, and as I get older, I'm okay with that.
yeah. And that's you kind of alluded to the hardest part about having to speak other people's love languages because it could be a love language that is not high on your list.
Hmm.
Like I know for me, what's interesting is that receiving gifts is probably the lowest on my list. Like I am the hardest person to shop for because I
Right.
never want anything. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I'm probably, if I had to rank mine, just kind of sort of thinking about it, like physical touch is actually pretty low on mine too. Like it's
Mm.
probably like 4 on my list.
Okay.
Um, I would probably say words of affirmation is one. Maybe either acts of service or quality time. What you could easily swap 2 or 3. But words of
Okay.
affirmation, I know for sure. Like I'm not even taking the test. I just know what I need, just like naturally. I'm a words
Mhm.
of affirmation guy.
I
But
see. I feel like that's a guy thing. Like I feel like more men just want to feel like appreciated and
yeah,
respected. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I know a lot of guys who will say that that's probably like I know a lot of guys who will say physical touch, but I know a
Mm.
lot of guys who will say words of affirmation probably more than even physical touch, because yeah, it is a very true thing that we do need that encouragement. We do need that like reinforcement to like know that, we can take on the world. We
Right.
can run through a brick wall if we need to, so
Right. Right.
but like it's just one of those things like, but me saying all of that is to say that like even me and my wife, I think her top love language is actually it might be receiving gifts. Now I think about it.
Mm.
But I've had to learn, I think we both have had to learn through being married that even though one might be not as high as the other, we've had to learn to kind of calibrate and say, okay, what do you need? How can I stand in this gap for you, or how can I show my love for you the best that you actually receive it, you actually resonate, that it actually
Right.
resonates with you. And again, I take myself out of it because yeah, it might not be high on my list,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean just because it's not high on my list that it's not a priority, because if it's high on yours, then it's a priority to me, you know.
Right. I
And I
love
think that's
that.
really the key. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think one of the really important things that you said is that it can be situational as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, you're like, for me, okay, receiving gifts might be a priority, but sometimes a gift is not what I need in the moment. You
Right.
know, I need
Yep.
something else, and I need like the anticipation and filling in, like, okay, you are needing extra support in this moment.
Hmm.
So I think that's definitely an important thing to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that situational. Because yeah, it can change from time to time. Because
Hmm.
even though thinking about physical touch for me is lower on my list, but it's not to say that it's not important, because
Right.
sometimes, yeah, I need a hug. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
sometimes I'd rather have the words, sometimes I'd rather have the acts of service, sometimes I'd rather have the quality time, sometimes, hey, I don't mind a gift too. I like gifts
Right.
too. But it really
Right.
does all depend on what you need in the moment that you need it. Like,
Exactly.
I think the love language thing, kind of like when you rank them, it's just to tell more so of a tendency than it
Hmm.
is like, okay, I can just book it that all I got to
Right.
do is, just talk them up or give her gifts and like she'll be good. Like, no, 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 no. You got,
Right.
again, you got to read the room. You
We
got to
got,
know the
yeah.
situation, you
It's
know.
not hard and fixed for sure. and
Right.
and I think that just being open to that is a love language in and of itself. The idea
Yes.
of wanting to, meet somebody where they're at, and where they, where, what, give them what they need,
Mhm.
is definitely a thing, because some people are just like, that attitude of like, this is who I am and I don't do that. And I think
Right.
that when, I think, going back to the example that I gave before, just the fact that he was willing to understand, hey, this is what she likes. No, it's not my typical thing, but I like her, so I'm going to do this as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, to that point, it forces you out your comfort zone
Mm,
as a partner, as a friend, however you relate to somebody. It really
mhm,
forces you to say, you know what? This isn't what I normally do, but this is going to add layers to who I am, because it's
mm,
teaching me how to meet somebody else's needs and not think about just what I need or what I
yeah,
would like to do for them.
yeah,
Like, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn through several relationships is, I'm very much like, I express myself through music. I express myself through, like, at one time, like, it would be making mixtapes for somebody. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying?
Oh,
That's not everybody's jams. You know what
no,
I'm
well,
saying? Like,
yeah.
everybody doesn't appreciate that. And it's like, that, and
Oh,
I really had to humble myself in a way to say, you know what? I made that about me
mm,
instead of making it about them.
right.
And once you make it about them and really say, okay, how can I get better at
Mm,
not just loving them, but learning to love other people as well? Because, yeah, relationships are kind of sort of like that. What's the word I'm looking for? Or the phrase I'm looking for? It's almost like a crash course in how to
mhm,
relate to everybody in your life, because you are dealing with this one person the majority of the time. I mean, you can even relate that to being a mother or being a parent. Like, you
mhm,
have to understand your child's love language and what
yeah,
things resonate with them the most. Because if you just come in hard and fast and just think, oh, I know what you need, and I know what's best for
mhm,
you, and blah 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 blah, but it's like, you're not listening to them, you
yes,
know
yes.
and a lot of people fail at so many different relationships because you're not listening to the other person.
And it's a quick way to turn them off to you. So,
Mhm.
I love that when you mention, being a mother and a parent, you want your child to be open and receiving what you're saying. And if you're just, like you said, coming fast and hard, they get turned off and they shut you out. And,
Yeah.
as they get older, your voice is already being diminished. So you don't
Mhm.
want to add to that and just completely like shut the door where they're not trying to hear anything you say.
Right.
I was laughing earlier when you mentioned about making the mixtape, because it's so funny. I didn't even think about this at the time, but now I'm like, okay, maybe that's what it was. I remember one of the first dates I went on. fresh out of my marriage, went out with this older man. I didn't care for him, to be honest.
Mm,
But he did end up sending me this playlist on Spotify.
yeah.
And I just remember being like, this broke ass, but oh, like, excuse me, excuse my
No,
language.
you good. You good.
But I was just like, no, this man, like, what are we, like 12? And I just, and I wasn't expecting him to send me, whatever, the
Yeah.
blood diamond or something, FedEx it to my door or anything like that. But I was like,
Yeah.
this is what he's got to offer. Like, I'm definitely not interested. And now that I think about it as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, maybe that was his way of kind of just sharing how he felt at the time. But I wasn't in that headspace
Right.
at the
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing
Right.
is, it's okay. Like
Right.
I've come to realize it's like, some people might say, oh, that's ungrateful or whatever. I've
Hmm.
been through that. And like in retros or at the time, yeah, I did see it that way. But
Hmm.
in retrospect, being more mature and understanding that everybody doesn't receive everything the same way.
Hmm.
And you can't, it's not a one size fits all when
Right.
it comes to how you express your love in a way that somebody else is going to receive it. Like
Definitely.
it's like it's almost like having kids. You're not going to talk to you if you have 5 kids. You're not going to talk to all 5 kids the same way. You're not going to
Wow.
relate to all 5 kids the same way because you were talking about 5 distinctly different personalities. So to try to like talk to all of them the same way that you would like try to talk to the oldest the same way that you would talk to the youngest, especially depending on how far apart they are in age. It's
Hmm.
like you're talking about difference in generate almost a half a generation. Like all of these different factors, like who their friends are, what their interests are, like all of these different things that make them who they are. It's like it's almost like why do we as people think that we can do the same thing with the people in our lives? Like if we
Right.
go from person to person, that we think just because this worked with one person, um it's kind of like, and it's funny that we talking about R&B because it makes me think of Love Me in a Special Way by DeBarge,
Mm.
when he's basically saying, you like gotta find something new,
Right.
because what worked for them, for me, it just won't do. I forget exactly what the
Right.
words were, but it was
Right.
like hearing that, I'm like, that
Hmm.
actually might be the most perfect song when it comes to love language. It's just
Yeah.
that part right there. It's,
Definitely.
it's like, yeah, that worked on them, but I'm different.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And you're not the same to people.
Right.
Because depending on how they are to you, they get a different version of you. And
Yes.
so you could have like a room full of your exes and they would quite literally be thinking, well, who on earth are you talking about? Because that's not the person that I was in a relationship with.
Right. Right.
So, it's interesting.
Yeah, that is powerful right there. Like you could have a whole, you could have some similarities and then some like completely different things. Like, he didn't do that with me.
Right, exactly. And I think, for that particular person, that person was getting a more wounded version of me because it was so fresh.
Mm,
Versus
mm,
now I'm like healed, and healing is not like a finite destination.
right.
It's a journey for sure, but I've definitely done a lot more work on myself, 4 years later than
Yeah.
that time. So, when people are doing things, I'm not as quick to be like, well, what? I don't need this, and, whatever, just
Yeah.
not as disparaging about
Yeah.
it as I was at that time.
Yeah. That is powerful right there. Like a different version of you coming. I mean, and especially coming fresh out of a marriage. Like
Yeah.
you really have to, it's almost like a death in a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
because you, just like a death, you have to grieve over the loss of a
Hmm.
particular the dynamic of a relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, you and your ex-husband have, a relationship with each other because you have a son together. But at
Yes.
the same time, the relationship that was is not the same. So you have a grieving period. And just like anything that you grieve over, when you think about the 5 stages of grief, those
Hmm.
things can come circling back around at any given time that they
Definitely.
want. But it's just a
Definitely.
matter of, like you said, how healed are you
Hmm.
as you go through that process of moving forward, you know?
Definitely. And
Yeah.
when you're fresh out of something, you're definitely, you have this mentality of like, I'm not gonna, basically be taken advantage of, or I gotta make
Right.
sure that I get mine. So, you're just you're not open, like love language wise or any other way. It's not
Mhm.
the same type of, I guess, way of relating to people as, like you said, when you're a little bit more healed, it's a different vibe,
Yeah.
totally
Absolutely.
different flow.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. Like I knew it was going to
Yes.
be. I knew it was going to
Yes.
be because I know you. But like this is even better than I was expecting. You know what I'm saying? So,
Awesome.
so this definitely exceeded the bar that was already set high, you know.
Yes, I love this. Thank you so much for having me. I want to definitely talk to you at any other time. I am open to being a part of your show. This is awesome.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And as always, any of my guests who are doing awesome and amazing things, I always give them the floor to plug whatever they want to plug. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that you are online and you do things and you showcase so many things when it comes to style, when it comes to being a mother, when it comes to just all of the things that you're interested in. Like this is your time to plug away.
Oh man, I don't have anything to plug at this moment. I am in the process of starting a online skincare boutique. So
Mm,
it's called Hydra Emporium. So it will definitely be launching by towards the end of the month.
awesome.
But I'll put it in my IG bio very soon.
Okay,
So
okay. So how can people follow you if they want to connect with you on social media?
definitely on Instagram at Javi Osei. That is probably the best way to follow me. And all my info is there. DM me. If you have questions, comments, whatever. I'm pretty much open to chat. Whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to thank you so much. It's so funny. I have to bring this up too. So we have the radio show in common that we did for a short time together. But and I
Mhm.
mentioned this to my wife recently. I was like, my friend Javi is actually the first person that ever gave me a manicure and a pedicure. And I
Oh,
watched
wow.
I watched specifically your technique and I was like, huh, okay. Cause I never knew what to do. But I watched
Right.
what you did. I was like, oh, okay. All right, boom, boom, boom. All right. So
Yeah.
I did like your technique, how you like, got away the cuticles and all of that
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
like
yeah.
filed away the dead skin and all. I was like,
It's
yeah, I
so
learned from
funny.
Javi.
What? And that is so, I remember we had that business
Yeah, yeah.
back in, oh my God, that is so funny.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to bring that up real quick. I'm like, if y'all need skincare tips, trust me, Javi is the one.
Yeah, listen, I try to keep it together. That's it. That's
Yes.
all I can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, once again, I thank you so much for coming on for a great conversation. Like, I mean, a lot of gems dropped tonight as expected. And I appreciate all your support, whether it's been with, what I've been doing with podcasts and whether it's been with music, whatever it's been. Also, I have to also shout you out for being a part of the Chasing Maria challenge that I did 2 years ago. You
Oh,
know what I'm saying?
yes,
Yes.
that was awesome.
And yours, when I say you took it to another level, being in the vineyard, oh my goodness. I was like,
Oh,
this is
really?
it. This is it. I was like,
Awesome.
yes.
Cool, cool. I'm so
Yeah,
happy to anytime you're a part of something and any way I can help and support, I'm happy to do that. So you've been
absolutely.
doing your thing for a long time and I love and respect everything that you're doing. So yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate that. No problem. And I got you right in return when it comes to the support. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We, like you said, we go way back. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Talking like what, 20, almost 26 years at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
not to give away our age, but
Right, right.
I'm just the 20th anniversary of my 21,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we'll definitely be talking real soon. And once again, I thank you so much for coming on Bring Back the Love Conversations tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Peace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, that was my sis Javi Osei with a great, great conversation on another episode of Bring Back the Love Conversations. Conversation about love, romance, R&B. And I might have to add a couple more because it's like we just, with a lot of these conversations, they go well beyond like even what you expect and how I brand it and everything. So just great, great insight, great perspective when it comes to this whole love language conversation. And of course, we're talking about love languages. I can't end the show without talking about this latest single that is out, Fluent in My Language. It's the brand new single. Well, it's not brand new at this point, but if you don't have it, you need to go get that thing. It is on, let me actually pull up the music for it. It is on all the on iTunes, on Amazon, on Bandcamp, agentThrowback.bandcamp.com. Also, my website, BAMMLLC.net/music. Of course, it's on Tidal. Of course, it's on Spotify. So wherever you can get music, it's there. Of course, YouTube, you want to watch it there. But I always, always tell people, y'all know how I do. It's one thing to stream, but I always say buy it because then we get the sales direct. We don't even have to worry about waiting a month or however many months to get the stream amounts, and then the stream amounts aren't even that much. Now, granted, Congress is talking about bumping up those stream numbers a little bit for us artists out here, especially those independent artists like me. But why even worry about all that? Just go ahead, buy that thing. So, I appreciate everybody who has supported so far, and I appreciate everybody who will support after watching this. Yeah, so I just appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight for this conversation. The next set of conversations will be around my next single, which will be announced maybe tomorrow, maybe a little bit after that, depending, but it will be announced soon thereafter. And then we will continue in this series. And then the next part of the series will be related to that particular single, which will be dropping very soon. So, once again, I thank everybody who's been a part of this series to this point. When we've talked about new love, we talked about love languages. And so I'm excited to see where this series goes from here. Also, of course, everything is about promotion. When it comes to, I got to promote my brand. Sometimes I can be the worst at promoting my own brand, but I got to do it anyway. Y'all see the gear, even though this is not one of my hats, but this is one of my sweatshirts. This is a Batch original, Batch Balancing Act Trinkets and Clothing House. This is a Batch original. I have merch, so if you're interested in any of the merch that you've seen throughout these weeks, please make sure that you hit up my website, which is BAMMLLC.net/shop batch. Once again, BAMMLLC.net/shop batch. Get merch like this. I have my Love on Rewind collection connected to this whole series. The singles that have come out, more merch will be coming as the months move on, as we get closer to the release of the album. But yeah, I have a whole collection dedicated to R&B, love, all of that good stuff. We got to take them to the bridge, sweatshirts and tees. At this point, we might be moving away from sweatshirts. It's just these months have been a little tricky with the weather. But we got the tees on there. Also got the Everybody Loves a Good Throwback tees on the page. And also you've seen the Make R&B Music Great Again dad hat. So if you like any of that gear, definitely make sure that y'all head to the page. You can also follow the Batch page on Facebook and Instagram at batch.202 and on X/Twitter, that is batch_202. If you're not already following me, please do so. Please do so. I follow back. As long as you ain't on nothing crazy, I got you on a follow back. I am on Facebook, X, Twitter at AJ Throwback. I am on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at a.j.throwback. And right here on YouTube, I am at AJ Throwback 928. If this is your first time watching anything that I've done, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on live, whether you're watching this on replay, I appreciate you for tuning in. But please, please, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so whenever I go live, post a new video, premiere a new video, you'll be among the first to know. So I think that's all the promo that I think I've covered. So until the next time that we meet, this has been another episode of Bring Back the Love Conversations with your man AJ Throwback. And of course, it's all about a conversation about love, romance, and R&B. And when we bring back TLC, as I like to say, it's not just the love conversations. It's all about bringing back tender, loving care. Until next time, y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see y'all then. Peace.